Hi guys, this is just going to be a quick video of me reviewing for your test, which is tomorrow. I'm going to go through some stuff and you should have your study guide out. Feel free to have the sub pause this video at any time so that you can write stuff down. We went over some of this the other day, but in case you didn't get it, this is your last chance. Okay. So, starting out with part one. Part one of the test is going to be about women's rights. So we're going to talk about people like Alice Paul, who we know was arrested and force-fed while she was in jail. We'll talk about things, people like Susan B. Anthony, who wrote the suffrage amendment, right? Harriet Tubman, who was a leader of the Underground Railroad. She was a spy. She was a nurse. She was a commander, right? Deborah Sampson, right? Dressed as a man to fight in the American Revolution. If you remember, she had to take a penknife and dig a bullet out of her leg all by herself without any numbing cream or anything like that. We also talked about in the women's unit the Middle Ages. We talked about Scold's Bridle, which was that metal mask with that annoying little bell that husbands could make their wives wear just when she was annoying to him, right? We also talked about the pink tax, right, which is where we see women spending more money at the store than men because of the products that they are buying because of that pink tax, right? Part two of your test is going to be talking about amendments that we discussed, starting with the 16th Amendment, not so sweet 16, right? Getting taxed. 16th Amendment talks about the federal income tax. The 17th Amendment, dancing queen, feel that beat, only Senate teen, right? It was so good. Totally not recording this at 6:53 a.m. Sorry, I was a little rusty there. But the 17th Amendment, if you remember from that cringy song that I just sang you, is all about voting for senators, right? Saying that you can vote for senators, talking about the process of voting for senators. That's the 17th Amendment. 18th Amendment is outlawing alcohol, right? You can't drink at 18, so no alcohol. That's just kind of a way to remember it. The 19th Amendment, you should just know, but in 1919, 1920, we have women gaining the right to vote with the 19th Amendment. And then the 21st Amendment is super easy to remember because at 21, you can drink alcohol, and with the 21st Amendment, it repealed the 18th Amendment, making alcohol legal again. Part three is all about the 1920s. We talked about what is used to make wine, grapes, right? Steamboat Willie was the first cartoon with sound. Al Capone was arrested for not paying his not paying his taxes. Guys, it really is early. And that's also called tax evasion, but just basically not paying his taxes. Al Capone did die from syphilis of the brain, and President Harding was known for the Teapot Dome scandal, okay? We also talked about Herbert Hoover. Herbert Hoover was the president when, was the president when the stock market crashed. And so people hated him, right, if you remember. So they named they had some pretty nasty nicknames for him and named some pretty sad things after him. Hoover blankets were newspapers that the homeless would use to cover themselves up. They called those Hoover blankets. Hoovervilles were where they lived, right? This was a collection of cardboard shacks, basically a homeless village. Hoover flags were empty pockets turned inside out, kind of alluding to the fact that people didn't have any money under Herbert Hoover's presidency after the stock market crash. And Hoover Ball was the game that they played on the White House lawn, created by Herbert Hoover's doctor to keep him in shape. Part 4 is all about World War II. We have the leader of Nazi Germany, which is Adolf Hitler, the leader of fascist Italy, which is Benito Mussolini. All you really need to know is their last names, but I'm going to say their full government name because I can. The leader of the Soviet Union is Joseph Stalin. President of the United States at the beginning of the war, that is FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, right? At the end of the war, the President of the United States is Truman, Harry Truman, right? We talked about the atomic bomb and all that stuff. That's him. The Emperor of Japan, that is Emperor Hirohito. Remember, he was that larger-than-life figure. The military commander of Japan was Hideki Tojo. And the Prime Minister of England during World War II was our boy. We know him. We love him. He hated most people during his life. That is Winston Churchill. Just a little bit more in depth with that. We talked about how Stalin used purges to kill millions. We talked about how Hitler used what was known as the brown shirts. And he copied that from Mussolini, who used the black shirts. And with Hitler, in Germany, they're feeling a lot of hyperinflation at that point, near the beginning of the war, right? And throughout the war as well. And we know that FDR was diagnosed with polio. He gave fireside chats. And Patton, if you remember, was that military commander that someone in his platoon or in his ranks were, the soldier was losing it, right? And he was having a mental breakdown. He was having a PTSD episode. And Patton comes up and smacks him across the face, which was not the move per se. But he was the military commander that led troops to capture Sicily. Part 5, we're almost done, guys, I promise. Part 5 is the Holocaust. We talked about anti-Semitism, anti-Semitic, which was that phrase that refers to a racist or bigoted view of the Jewish community. We talked about the Nuremberg laws, which took away a lot of the Jewish people's freedom in Germany. Ghettos were where the Jewish people were sent. They were subject to extreme overpopulation. The whole point of these ghettos was to have the Nazis supervise them closely, right, in smaller spaces, keep them contained. The conditions were awful. Like I said, overpopulation does that. Just really, really bad. To be recognized in public, Jewish citizens were forced to wear the Yellow Star of David, right? We talked about Hitler's plan to kill all of the Jewish people, which was the final solution. And the gas used in the gas chambers was Zyklon B. Part 6 is all about civil rights. This should be a little bit more fresh in your mind because we just finished that. The heroes of the movie Birth of a Nation was the KKK. You could also put the South, the Confederacy, right? They all refer to kind of the same idea. Which president admitted his prejudice of African Americans and the Japanese, and he also dropped the atomic bomb? That is Truman, right? The USA has been a country for a long time, and we have had overt, obvious institutional racism for 103 years, or 42%. 4 little girls died in the bombing of an Alabama church in 1963. We talked about that. You can go visit that. They have a statue outside. Emmett Till was 14 years old when he was killed, and it turned out to be false that he sexually assaulted a white woman. Talking about court cases, Loving versus Virginia, 1967, said that you can marry outside of your race. The 1968 Federal Housing Act got rid of redlining, which we talked about. We looked at a video, or we watched a video that talked about redlining. Remember, it was sectioning off certain parts of a city for a certain group of people based on race. And so the 1968 Federal Housing Act got rid of that. Brown versus the Board of Education said Plessy versus Ferguson, separate is not equal, and it helped end segregation in schools. And the Civil Rights Act of 1964 altered that electoral map and just did a lot of things, making sure that people were aware of a lot of the racism within the government. Part 7 is the Cold War, Middle East. This is talking about all the different presidents that we talked about. If you remember Eisenhower, during his presidency, we launched Sputnik, or we didn't. Russia launched Sputnik, which started the space race. JFK was assassinated, and Lyndon B. Johnson came up with that package that had a lot of JFK's ideas in there, right, which was called the Great Society. We talked about Richard Nixon, who was president known for the Watergate scandal. The Vietnam War ends during his presidency. We have Ford, who comes after Nixon, who is Nixon's vice president, who pardons Nixon and doesn't really do much else. And Carter, Jimmy Carter, who at the time of this video is not doing too well health-wise currently in current times. And so he's 99 years old. I need to quit yapping, don't I? Anyway, Jimmy Carter was president during the Iran hostage crisis. And that's what kind of doesn't get him reelected, is all the backlash because of that. Ronald Reagan was known for the Iran-Contra scandal. George H.W. Bush was not going to raise taxes, but then he does. And President Clinton was impeached. George Bush was president during the attack on 9/11, and the 20-year war with Afghanistan begins. Trump was president during COVID. He was impeached twice. And Barack Obama was president when gay marriage became legal. Don't Ask, Don't Tell was repealed, and was the president that ordered the attack that killed Osama bin Laden. Part 8 is talking about our graphic novels. If you remember, our novel, They Called Us Enemy, shared the experiences of Jewish civilians. Or, oh my gosh, I'm wrong. Stop. Scratch that, reverse it. They Called Us Enemy shared the experience of Japanese Americans, talking about internment camps. George Takei talked about his experience growing up in an internment camp. Mouse shared the experience of Jewish civilians during the Holocaust, and March talked about the experience of different leaders in the civil rights movement. And then part 9, just to round out the test, is old stuff. Now this is your semester 2 exam, but just a throwback in this part. Our old friend, our old question that was on the beginning of every test last year, but last semester, was what invention led to the need for cheap labor in the form of slavery? That was the cotton gin, right? Talking about the defensive line that the Union used at Gettysburg, that was the fishhook, right? That was how we got to win Gettysburg. I know that was a long time ago, but that's why we're reviewing it. The term logistics is planning and understanding how to get soldiers and supplies and communication to where it needs to be. We should, in history classes, ask the question, why, right? That's important to know people's motivation, why. And history is not about the good guys or the bad guys. It's about perspective. And that's all I have for you. Sorry this video was chaotic. Sorry I'm not there to present this chaos in person. But you can do a couple of things. You can work on your study guide if you don't have that done. You can work on your 8th grade thesis project. Or you can work on your History Hunger Games activity. A reminder that your 8th grade thesis project is due Monday, and your History Hunger Games activity is due on Tuesday. For your thesis, remember that you have to have an outline. You have to have an outline. You have to fill that out. That's literally part 1. And you have to be ready to present something. Could be a PowerPoint, poster, video, whatever, right? You could also play the Blooket if you're done with all of those, right? For your test tomorrow. Please make sure that you're sitting in your assigned seats. I know, usually when I'm there, I let you sit by your friends. But today and tomorrow, you are not sitting by your friends, okay? You are sitting in your assigned seats. It's going to make it easier for the sub. Next week, we won't have a seating chart. How about that? That's our deal, okay? But please sit in your assigned seats and work on your stuff, right? Because if I hear that you guys were messing around and you don't have your stuff done on Monday, yikes, okay? So I'll quit yapping. Enjoy the rest of your day. You probably don't miss me, and that's okay. Okay, let me know. Send me an email. I might not be super quick to email you back, but I do have email on my phone, and I will be at the state track meet, so there might be a lull in there somewhere, but ask your friends first and then email me if you're still not sure. Okay, bye guys.